Hello, and thanks for watching another edition of ARFCOM News. Today I want to tell you about the attempt to ban silencers altogether and why that's monumentally stupid. But before we get started, I want to tell you about the fine mahogany night vision products offered to you by our friends at TNVC.com. Artfully handcrafted by earnest, hardworking Amish operators, TNVC night vision is unique and uncompromising, just like you. If you like seeing stuff more than not seeing stuff, take a look at our sponsor, TNVC.com, your source for quality night vision gear to make you the bump in the night. Well, friends, it's gonna be a bumpy road for the next few years. We are going to see a lot of bills filed, and some will have more chance of passing than others. I'm not inclined to speculate on whether this one will pass, but Senator Bob Menendez introduced the Help Empower Americans to Respond Act in 2019, and it died in committee. I guess he feels like he has another chance now, and maybe he's right. It sure feels like there is more political will now to pass gun control. I'd imagine most folks have no idea silencers are legal, so it seems like the kind of thing average folks would back, just not knowing any better. Should we ban silencers? Wait, I thought they were already illegal. Of course we should. If passed, the ironically named HERE Act would totally outlaw silencers with no grandfather clause for devices already owned, but it would allow for compensation to folks for turning in their legally registered silencers. The language isn't published yet, but the 2019 bill didn't include any reference to how much the compensation would be.
I find that answer vague and unconvincing.
So I have to assume it's unlikely folks would recover much more than they already spent on the tax stamp. Now, I'm not a lawyer because there are some things even I wouldn't do for a Klondike bar, but the 2019 bill also doesn't appear to specify any penalty for failing to turn in a silencer. So to my lay eye, that means they don't plan to go through the NFA registry in an attempt to recover silencers, and it is left to the individual to destroy or turn in the devices. So that means, how can I put this without getting myself into trouble? If you have a registered silencer and you were to destroy it before the effective date, I don't think anyone would come looking for it. But like I said, I'm not a lawyer, and this certainly isn't legal advice. As is always the case, the bill makes exceptions for law enforcement and military. I strongly believe there should never be such a thing. Any device which is too dangerous for the people is too dangerous to trust to the government. I ran a background check on them, and I gotta say, I am not comfortable with their history of violence. If the government were a person, they would be considered a high risk for recidivism and a poor candidate for parole. But I'm having an especially difficult time understanding how they can justify an exemption for law enforcement in this context. If silencers really are the ninja assassin devices they claim and they have no legitimate use, then why would cops need them? Surely they aren't trying to tell us they want police to be able to summarily deadify people without anyone hearing, right? Of course, the answer is silencers aren't at all what they are claiming. Even the best .22 cans reduce the sound of the shot to somewhere between a jackhammer and an ambulance siren. They're still loud, especially centerfire pistols, and even more especially anything firing a supersonic projectile. No one is whacking someone in another room, Hollywood style. But the reduction in peak pressure is enough to significantly reduce the risk and severity of permanent hearing damage, and that's what makes silencers useful for law enforcement officers as well as laypersons. While they aren't quiet and could never allow someone to do the things Hollywood glorifies, and YouTube won't let me use the words to describe, silencers do allow people to hunt, train, and defend themselves with lower risk of injury and less disturbance to their neighbors. Even former ATF Associate Deputy Director Ronald Turk admitted the reason for their inclusion in the NFA is archaic, and historical reluctance to removing them from the NFA should be reevaluated, and he admitted that silencers were rarely used in crimes. How rarely are they used in crimes? I'm glad you asked. According to a paper published in Western Criminology Review and linked down there in the doobly-doo, between 1995 and 2005, there were 153 criminal cases involving a silencer, but 80% of those involved nonviolent victimless crimes. 20 of those cases were for no crime other than silencer possession, and 37 of the cases involved only other weapons charges, with no indication the defendant intended to commit any other crime. 50 of the cases were drug raids where the silencer was simply found on the premises but wasn't actually used in any crime. And finally, in 14 of these 153 cases, the defendant was acquitted of all charges. In more than 92% of those 153 cases, the silencer was not actively used in any way. The defendant simply got caught having a silencer. That leaves 32 cases over the span of a 10-year study where a silencer was involved in some way with an actual crime out of approximately 80,000 federal criminal cases in the same period. During that entire 10-year study, there were exactly 2 committed using a silencer. There were only 4 cases where a silencer-equipped firearm was actually discharged. Bear in mind, the ATF says about 1.3 million legally registered silencers are floating around out there. Of course, there's no way to know how many undocumented silencers there are, but it's not like those are subject to any new legislation anyway. So out of 1.3 million legal silencers and 80,000 federal criminal cases over the span of 10 years, there were two involving a silencer. I don't have a bill number or even text for you on this one yet, but we'll keep a close eye on it, and if it looks like it's getting anywhere, I'll definitely summon the mighty power of the ARFCOM viewers to get it stopped in committee, just like the last time they pulled this crap. But before we move on, I want to address the handful of pedants out there in the crowd who have been chewing their nails to the quick every time I use the word silencer. I'm sure by this point, several of them have already typed angry replies down below, going something like this. Actually, it's called a suppressor because it doesn't silence the shot.
Where are they? I think they're talking about us.
So here's my preemptive reply to their predictable comment. Only people who don't own one think silencer is the wrong word. The man who invented the device called it a silencer. The patent calls it a silencer. The ATF calls it a silencer. Manufacturers such as Silencer Co. call it a silencer. Retailers such as Silencer Shop call it a silencer. A similar device for bows, which also quiets but does not totally eliminate the noise of firing, is also called a silencer. Car mufflers, which also don't make exhaust totally silent, are sometimes called silencers in the UK. The terms silencer, muffler, can, moderator, or puant are all fine with me. The only word I don't often use is suppressor, because that word makes pedants happy, and as AVE says, you should never oblige a pedant. Well, friends, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoy watching these things because I sure like making them for you. You guys are always asking me where I find my fly shirts, so this time I put a link to my shirt down there in the doobly-doo, but if you want to try your luck and see if you can win this rad shirt, post a comment containing the phrase "on the bounce" in the YouTube comments, and I will arbitrarily and unilaterally choose the best one. If you want to help us keep bringing you banger content like this, please support the folks who support us. Not only does TNVC.com give you night vision with that cool, refreshing, never bitter taste that goes down smooth, they also have mounts, lights, and all sorts of other gear to make you the bump in the night. I love you.